Welcome to your weekly reminder that only dead fish go with the flow. This episode is going to be a bit of an eye-opener for me because I don't have much knowledge on motorsport, even though I've done quite a lot of Googling to sort of make sure that I've got some notes to chat with Vanessa. But we have Vanessa Ruck, who's come on to the show for us today. So welcome and thank you ever so much. And I hope that your new baby, or not so new, 8 months now, but has a nice nap while we get our chat done. So you're in motorsport, specifically motorbikes. So for the benefit of the audience and actually me, because I'm really excited to learn about this world, could you name and explain what you do?
Thanks so much for having me on. I think it's always one of those difficult ones because when people think of motorbikes, a lot of different people in society will think of different things, and I kind of think of motorbikes like little black dresses. There's a lot of different little black dresses, and there's a place for all the different little black dresses in our lives. And I ride lots of different types of motorbikes. I'd say on the racing side, I am definitely more focused into the extreme desert racing. So I did the original Dakar last year, which is a one of the toughest off-road endurance races in the world. It's 13 days, 6,000 kilometers across Africa, solo on a motorbike. But I also ride a lot of different types of motorbikes. So I do trials riding, hard enduro riding, road, track, adventure riding, enduro. Basically, I've ridden, I think, about 33 different countries around the world now, traveling, and I share a lot of this through my social media channels as the girl on a bike. And I suppose I got into biking in a slightly different way as well, because a lot of people look at particularly the races that I've done and think that I must have been riding since I was a little kid. And I actually only started riding as an adult following quite a big curveball in life that happened in 2014. And I suppose I started my channels as a way to connect with other people going through similar curveballs. We can obviously talk about the curveball if you like. Um, but it ended up becoming a almost community of trying to help inspire and encourage other people to get up and make the most of every day. And I'd say that that's my goal with every piece of content that I put out there. And what I do is to try and help other people with the battles that they are facing in life and try and have a glass full approach.
Fantastic. I actually had one of my questions was the motorsport industry is very male orientated from sort of an outsider's perspective. A, how did you get into it? So we can definitely dive into that. And B, how did you find like your rhythm within it? So your social media channels and your drive.
Yeah, so there's lots of different ways to answer this question. I'd say in the UK, the motorbike industry, when I started riding, was probably about 8% female in the registration of road bikes. When you go into the off-road world, it's much smaller than that. Thankfully, more and more females are getting into motorbikes, and I believe the registration is now up to about 12% females, which is amazing. So any females listening, come on, we can do all of this stuff too. And I got into motorbikes a little bit unusually. So basically, I'll just go straight in. I got hit by a car in 2014 while cycling. I was not an active motorbike rider, and the implications of that accident were pretty catastrophic on my body and my life. Life as I knew it changed instantly. It was a standard normal Tuesday. I'd been in the office. I was an account director in marketing, cycling down the road, actually on the way to the wakeboarding lake to have an evening behind the boat and running the wakeboarding club. And yeah, went through my green traffic light and a car coming the other way decided not to stop at their red light. And that was my life changed instantly, irreversibly. I will shorten the story slightly, but basically I had a 7-year recovery with 7 surgeries, and I've now got a reconstructed right shoulder and right hip. The shoulder, I'd say, is pretty darn good. I've worked so hard on rehab and I've got full trust and I'm pretty strong. I can't do some of the vanity metrics I used to do, like 5 sets of 13 wide arm pull-ups. I don't need to put a reconstructed shoulder through that stuff, but I can get stuck in a tight top, but I can get on with life. And my hip is very much still grumpy. I've got a 95% certainty of needing more surgery, and I live and manage chronic pain in my hip. And through the recovery, which was very much a roller coaster of one surgery a year for 7 years, just because of things being missed, complications, the joints, the body is an incredibly complicated thing, and it wasn't necessarily the smoothest medical journey. So I was, bedbound, having to relearn how to walk again, doing loads of rehabilitation, going to a swimming pool 6 days a week to walk in the hope that eventually if I walk in the water, I'll be able to walk outside the water. Then I'd start to get a bit more active, a bit more able, sort of coming up the roller coaster as such to a higher point where maybe I could think about getting on a motorbike, and there'd be complications. I couldn't live with the pain. Things just aren't right, and I need to have more surgery. And I'd be back down in the bottom of the roller coaster, having more surgery, going for that rehab. And it was during one of my higher points on the roller coaster where I was a little bit more able, not able to do the extreme sports that I did before the accident. Kite surfing was my main love, but I mountain bike, rode, horse ride, snowboarded, lots of outdoor activities. I lived for sort of physically pushing myself and the adrenaline. And I wasn't able to get back to those things, but I was at a point where I could think about getting on a motorbike, and it started because I could no longer commute to work in central Oxford on a bicycle. The traffic was horrific driving in, the cost of parking, the cost of fuel, the time it took to get in. Like on my
Mm.
bicycle, I cycled to work, rain or shine, ice or snow, wind or storm, I got on that bike. And if I wanted to be lazy and drive in, I actually had to get out of bed earlier because it
Yeah,
took,
I was a university student at Oxford Brookes, and the bike was always the way to go.
yeah,
But I did have quite, not obviously an accident like you're describing, but I did have quite a few close calls with students sort of not using indicators and just turning in, and you're on the inside, and suddenly you're just
yeah.
across their boot and stuff. And but the bike was always the way to go because it would literally take you like 15 minutes as opposed to 45. Like, it was insane.
Yeah, exactly. And I was cycling up from Abingdon, south of Oxford in, and yeah, it was a 25-minute cycle ride and an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours in the car, if you got the timing wrong. So
No
I
brainer.
wasn't able to cycle. Yeah, exactly. And I realized it was actually like a Friday night, sat at home with a friend and gin and tonic, and I was like, I should get a motorbike. Now, I had my full motorbike license already. I'm one of those people that like to collect qualifications and licenses. So at uni, I did it. I've got my speedboat license, my chainsaw license, my towing license, and so I got my motorbike license. And anyway, I thought this was genius. I hadn't thought about the fact that I'd actually been clinically diagnosed with fear of the road, along with depression, change disorder. I had a really big mental health recovery, far worse than the physical, in fact. And anyway, I thought it was genius. I got a motorbike. I can skip the traffic, not worry about parking, save money on fuel, all this kind of stuff. So went out. There was a bike in my town for really not much money. Old little bike, great spec. Fate. The stars are aligning. Went and bought it the next day. Following day, went and bought some bike kit, and then I had to get on this thing and ride it. And that is something that I can't emphasize enough how hard it was. I think the first, the 10th, the 50th, the 200th time I got on that bike, I had panics, I had freakouts. Why am I on a bike? I nearly died. I shouldn't be on the road, all this kind of stuff. But I just, few things that helped me through that journey, but I was determined that I wasn't going to let the lady that hit me control my future. Like, I had to get past it. And even now, 11 years on, if a car comes from a certain direction, it will flash me straight back to that accident. But that's okay. That's part of trauma, and it's something that I just have to sort of try and manage and be kind to myself over. So I then had my first bike and I started to do the commute on it. And then what I didn't realize is that motorbikes breed. So when you have one motorbike, suddenly there's two in your garage, and then the next thing you know, these two are talking to each other, and then you want a third one, and before you know it, right now I've got nine in the garage, and they all do
Oh
different
my
things.
God.
They're all for different stuff, but yeah, they're very addictive. Now, if I continue the journey, someone might think, okay, so you got hit by a car, you started commuting on a bike, and then 8 years later you did one of the toughest off-road races in the world. It still doesn't stack up. I'm very aware of that. It's certainly been a stepping stone journey. So when I decided to get into the off-road bikes, it was actually after my third surgery, which was the first on my hip. I was bedbound. I was the day after I got back from the hospital. Could barely even get to the toilet on my own, let alone get on a motorbike, that's for sure. And I just turned around to my husband and I was like, "Can I get a dirt bike?" And he was like, "What? Like, look at you. What are you talking about?" And this is where I say surround yourself with people that say yes when you come up with crazy ideas and support you. So we did some research and we went out and got me my first off-road motorbike. And it was a little Yamaha WR 250. And it sat there for 5 months until I could even sit on it. But it was sat there as a goal, as a reminder, as a little poke going, "Hi, come on." And those moments where I wanted to quit and I wanted to give up on life and I couldn't find the energy to do my physio and I hurt too much, that bike was sat there telling me to fight and to keep going. And if anyone's struggling with motivation or trying to get through the work that they need to do to come out the other side of something, setting yourself some kind of goal, particularly one that you've put money commitment to, like buying a bike, can really help motivate you. And it certainly worked. I then sort of started riding this bike. Unfortunately, I was only able to ride it for, I think it was 5 or 6 weeks before I then realized, not because I'd ridden the bike, just through general recovery, that my hip was still bad. And I've had 4 more surgeries on my hip since getting this first bike. But I became quite determined to get better on the bike. And linking back to your question about being male dominated, I think that probably helped fuel me because there were a lot of times where I'd rock up at, a practice day somewhere and people would see a little blonde girl and I've got naturally ridiculously long eyelashes and they look at me and be like, well, she obviously can't ride. And I almost took that as a a little fire inside my belly to go, I'm going to prove you wrong. And I'm not just gonna turn up with my blonde hair and not have a clue. I'm going to fight to be credible. I'm gonna learn about the mechanics. I'm gonna understand the bike. I'm gonna get better on the bike. What can I do to train? And even when I was off the bike again from all surgeries, it was like, what can I do while I can't ride to get myself better at riding? What can I do to improve my balance? After one of my surgeries, I went out to the garage, was no way allowed to ride a bike, but I stood on it and balanced. And I just practiced
Mm.
balancing on it without the engine on, so there was no risk of any falls or anything like that. And I got to the point where I could stand and balance for 15 minutes. That was my personal best. And it sounds ridiculous that I was in the garage standing on a bike with no engine on, but for my mental health, I was doing something that was going to help me progress. And my goodness, when
Mm.
I'm in a rocky riverbed, miles from anywhere, on my own in the middle of Morocco or Senegal or wherever I am in a race, that balance has helped me out so many times. And
Yeah.
so,
There's I was just gonna say there's nothing more motivating than being underestimated.
oh, I love that phrase. Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Yeah,
There is nothing more there's nothing that drives me more than being completely underestimated and the opportunity to prove somebody wrong. And yeah, that when I was listening to you talk about that just then, that's all I could think about, like how satisfying to rock up like a month or a week later and just be like, no, actually, I do know that and I can do that and watch me do this and or not even having to say anything, just doing it.
yeah, yeah. It's been a good motivation. And I kind of think that all the stuff I've been doing on the bikes has just continued to sort of stepping stone and hop me onto the next thing. I mean, I was doing some workshops with Harley Davidson recently about tips for riding big bikes, particularly for ladies who generally we are smaller compared to the males that these bikes are designed for. Come on, manufacturers, catch up. But we can ride the big bikes too. It's a lot of it is just technique, and I just think it's so important to try and help empower more females to realize that it is possible. Like I've ridden a bike. I went around Romania with girlfriend on the back, panniers, everything, and I realized all up we were 600 kilos. That's like a small car. And I'm not huge. I'm relatively fit. Obviously, you have to be to do some of the races that I do. It's technique. And I think it's so important to try and get the word out to people. Anyone who's sort of doubting themselves or thinking they can't do it, every single one of us is just a normal human. And if we look at somebody else and think, well, they're way better than me, no, they're exactly the same. They've just put some work in, some time, some training, some upskilling, some knowledge, some fitness, whatever it is. And you could do the same if you want to make the choice. And I think that's really important to remember. Like, if you want it, go
Mm.
make it happen.
I really appreciate you sharing your story. This is kind of why I started the podcast because I wanted to learn about other women in sport and give them a platform for their stories. I mean, you absolutely have a your This Girl on a Bike is a huge platform, but I wanted to find out more about the stories as well. So I just want to say I really appreciate you sharing your story. For these events that you're doing, what does training actually look like? You've mentioned that there's your road to doing this event has actually been pebbled with a lot of rehab and a lot of setback. And but if you were um rehab maybe to one side. I don't think rehab ever goes away, or prehab, as sometimes it can be called, sort of preventing something from flaring up again. But what would like training for one of these
Yeah.
enduro events look like?
So the big one, the original Dakar, the Africa Coast I did, 13 days, 6,000 kilometers. Training for that is an unbelievable amount of fitness, obviously, but there's way more than just fitness. So I'll get to that. On the fitness side, really being strong riding a motorbike is very hard to replicate without time on a motorbike. So a massive part of it is just getting a lot of time on a bike and solid, consistent time. Some of these days in the desert, you're out there for 7, 8, 13 hours on a trot, and you just take an easy comparison. I'm not downplaying a marathon. A marathon is an absolutely incredible achievement, but a marathon, a typical person will do a marathon in, 3, 4 hours maybe. And I'm doing like 2 of those a day for 13 days with a day off in the middle. It's unbelievable amount of endurance. So the fitness is really important. When you can't be on a motorbike, I do a bit of running, but my body can't handle more than 1, maybe 2 if I really push it runs a week because of my hip. The e-mountain bike has been really game changing for me in the last few years because it takes a bit of the load off my joint and enables me to do the e-mountain biking. And then general life, chopping logs, just doing general life like that. Nutrition is really, really important. It doesn't matter how fit you are, if your body is not fueled and it's not hydrated, then you're not going to be able to perform. Even if you got a top spec athlete and put them on the start line without the right food, they're going to flop. The fuel is really important, and there's a lot of that happens in the preparation, because you can't just rock up in the desert with some electrolytes and energy gels and not know how your body's going to behave on them under stress. There's one certain type of energy gels that I discovered basically goes straight through me. And so it's all right if you're doing a 1-day race, but if you're doing a 3, 4, 13-day race, you can't be having the runs all week. So you've got to do a lot of preparation to work out what your body performs on under stress for a duration of time. I was eating a minimum of 8,000 calories a day. And if you take the fact that you're on the bike for anywhere from 8 to 13 hours, there's not much window for eating. So in the morning, you're eating to the point that you want to vomit. You are like absolutely force feeding yourself. I have 2,500 calories just in my water that I'm drinking. I have a hose that comes out of my helmet straight into my mouth. So as I'm riding along, I don't have to take my hands off the bars in deep sand or whatever I'm riding. I can just like put my head forward slightly in helmet and have a drink. So the food and the nutrition is really important. And I know you asked about fitness, but you don't have fitness without the fuel and the food and nutrition, which I'm very much can see from your nods that you understand from your rowing
100%.
background. And then you've got the mentality. There's been definitely scenarios in races where I've got myself into difficult situations. A lot of these races, they're very dangerous. A lot of the races people don't come home from, particularly on the motorbikes. There are sadly deaths, and I mean, one of the races, even 2 people didn't come home in one of them. It's not uncommon. People break necks, break backs, big life-changing injuries happen because it's a dangerous, dangerous race and dangerous sport in remote places. Um, and the preparation is so pivotal to get you there. And once you're in the desert, your mentality for me is the resilience to keep going is really critical. If you go on my YouTube video, you can see a lot of the races. There's series behind them. So the Tunisia Desert Challenge was one particular one where I had 2 mechanicals. The first day I had a mechanical, I ended up in the dunes overnight in the pitch black for 7.5 hours waiting to be rescued. I ended up having to light a little fire to keep me warm. It's freezing cold in the desert overnight, and keep the boogeyman, Sandman away, not be pitch black. And prior to this event, I couldn't even be home alone on my own. We live quite rural. I'd have to borrow my parents' dogs. I'd be shutting the curtains, locking the doors before it got dark. After that race, I don't even lock the doors. I don't do the curtains. I can go for a run in the woods on my own. It's amazing how it shifted my mentality being stuck in the dunes. And then I had another mechanical on that race where I couldn't repair it trackside, and I ended up in 48 degrees heat with no shade in the middle of the dunes for 7.5 hours again. 7.5 hours seems to be the number. And I ended up having to hit the emergency button and get a helicopter to come and get me. And I was very close to not being with us. I got in quite a lot of trouble from the medics for not calling for help sooner. But psychologically, it's really, really hard. When you're sat in the desert, you haven't crashed, you're not bleeding, you're not broken, you're just sat there feeling a bit hot. It's very hard to hit a button and go, right, race control, I need you to drop everything and send a helicopter to me. And yeah, I've learnt I'll do it sooner next time. But in those moments, that following night, I went to bed and I woke up having an absolute night terror. Woke up in a hot sweat screaming because I got stuck in the desert again. And I'd already been stuck in the desert twice, obviously been rescued really close. I was on a drip for hours, three bags of fluid in me. It was scary. And I just sort of went, you know what? I've bitten off more than I can chew. I'm going to retire. I can't do this race. And eventually I got myself back to sleep. Woke up in the morning. Right, where's my bike? Back on the start line and back out I went. I had chosen to do that race because I knew how goddamn hard it was going to be. You don't get to the end of races like this and get the satisfaction of having finished it if they were easy. If they were easy, everyone would be doing it. Like, the fact that it is so hard that it takes you to like the next level of your ability to dig deep, to push on, to fight, that's where the satisfaction comes from. And they're also not exactly the cheapest events to enter. I mean, there's some serious funding behind it. So there's an element of like, well, I freaking paid to be here. I'm gonna pull my sleeves up and fight on. But I think alongside the physical preparation and the kit preparation, the mental preparation of just having brute determination is really important. Like, you've got to want it. If you don't want to make the finish line, you're not going to. And if you take the Africa Eco Race that I did last year, I can tell you every person that was on that start line wanted the finish line. Only 46% made the finish line. That's the attrition rate on the motorbikes. It's a really hard event.
That's fascinating. It's not something that's ever come into my radar before. We were connected via a very good friend of mine, Alex, and she's actually given me a question about your choice of bike for some of these races. Um, but it's not something that is, come across into my world at any point. And it is absolutely fascinating, like listening about these types of races, where they're being held, the sort of situations that you guys are in, like in the desert, life or death sort of situation, and only 46% of the group finishing a race. That's insane. And the other question I was going to ask or point out actually was, these races are in effect like unisex, like you're not racing a women's only event. It's everybody. You're just going for it and going to, see what happens. And absolutely, there's nothing more motivating than, as we said earlier, proving someone wrong, but also having a financial commitment to the event, like if it's cost a lot of money. Not that that's a reason to put
Yeah.
yourself in medical danger. But I
No,
had one
totally
quick
agree.
question about your yeah, oops. So my friend Alex, who is a very, very keen, very obsessed, she pointed out that you race on a bike that is maybe double the weight of your competitors. So it's a 200-kilo bike as opposed to a dirt bike. Or I don't know where she's found
Hmm.
this. You're looking
Okay,
confused.
interesting. Okay, so there's probably a couple of angles where she's got this question from. So in the sort of extreme desert racing that I've done, like the Morocco Desert Challenge, Tunisia, Qatar, and then the Africa Eco Race, I am always on a rally bike. And earlier on, I was on an enduro bike turned into a rally bike. So it's like a smaller bike
Okay.
modified to be able to do the distance, carry enough fuel, and have the navigation tower on the top. Something I haven't even mentioned is the navigation. We could talk about that in a moment if you like. And then once I realized that I was obsessed and I really wanted to go back to the desert and I wanted to aim big, I ended up committing and buying a full factory rally bike. They're about £32,000, and this is like the bike you want to be on to go and do sort of the Dakar. That's what the majority of the bikes on the start line are. And this is 177 kilos, fully loaded, 33 litres of fuel. It has the full tower on the front of your navigation. It's got inbuilt toolkits. It's like the ox of the desert. It's a beast. It's incredible. KTM 450 engine, beautiful. And that's the biggest engine you can have. So I that's what I race on. That's very normal, and that's what majority of my competitors are on. Bearing in mind the majority of my competitors are twice my body weight and 30% taller, and I'm on the exact same size bike. I have lowered it because reaching the ground and having that confidence is the difference between a drop and not having a drop a lot of the time. But you kind of have to be on that kind of kit to do these races. You can't turn up on a little enduro bike because you're not going to have the amount of stress the engine goes through in deep sand. I mean, sometimes you've got dunes that are 400 meters high. One of the days in Mauritania, it was a day where it was 95% sand. It's not all just rocky terrain in Africa. It's very varied. You've got riverbeds, big plateaus. Like sometimes you're sitting at 145, just bang out on what you hope is roughly smooth, and you're trying to eye up the ground to catch things. But there's some really technical stuff as well. You need the proper bike, and you can't do it on a little bike, basically. What I think maybe Alex's question comes from is that I've done maybe some silly challenges. So Triumph challenged me to do the Thousand Dunas Desert Rally, which is a week-long rally in Morocco, and they challenged me to do it on a Tiger 900 Rally Pro. And this is a bike that weighs 228 kilos, I believe. So yeah, a good 80 kilos heavier than it needs to be. And going into the desert on that bike is pretty brave. Going into it on your own would have been stupid, so I did it with a teammate, and the two of us rode two Tigers, and between us, we kept going. Now, I can pick up that bike. I've got the strength, but picking it up once, picking up 5, 6, 7, maybe 10th, 15th time, day 5, 20th time, or it's upside down on a dune the wrong way, that's where we were a team, and we had to help each other out with the bikes a lot. There was actually a day where my teammate burnt his clutch out and he had to be rescued. And I was like, cool, okay, we'll wait and get rescued. And the race control were like, we'll come and get Aled. Vanessa, you need to keep going. And I'm like, what? I want to keep going on my own. Thankfully, I only had like 3.5K more of these dunes. It had taken us 3.5 hours to do 32K of these dunes so far. And I had 3.5K left. And once I got out of that dune, I kind of knew that I'd be able to handle the rest of the day solo. I had about 280K left. A typical day is anywhere between 400 and 800K a day, just to give you context. So I basically just rode for my life, and I somehow managed to keep that bike upright and got out the dunes, and then made it to the end of the day, and we fixed his bike and he was back out we rode the next day together. But maybe that's possibly the bike that she's talking about. I'm normally on the appropriate bike for the event, apart from when I get silly challenges.
Quite possibly that's what she spotted. She's a keen fan, so she had done her own research knowing that we were having a chat, and I was like, okay, what are the best bits that I need to sort of check out? And that was one of them. I did have a question. Obviously I've got questions. I'm fucking podcast host, what am I on about? Do you have a sporting ick in your sport and your bikes? Is there something that teammates or you see competitors do that you're like, that's just so wrong?
It's probably when you see people at the start line or in the pits, they turn the bike on and then they just sit there going on the engine. I'm like, what are you doing? That is so unbelievably mechanically unkind. Be kind to your bike. Just turn it on, let it idle, take it for a little ride, give it some gentle revs and let it warm up. Why are you ragging it stationary? Like, what are you doing? That's probably my ick.
That's That's so funny because without knowing too much about the sport, that would be the first thing that springs to mind. Just like revving the engine. You have done a fantastic job of explaining a lot of your sport. One of the things I wanted to ask was these events obviously taking you all over the world. Do you have a favorite venue that you've been to or a favorite location that the sport has taken you? I know with my like rowing. I've been to Switzerland, America, Serbia, Poland, Germany, Belgium. Like it takes us all different places. My husband is about to go to
Yeah.
China for a world championships. Where is the where has been the favorite place that you this sport has taken you?
So because my riding isn't all racing, I do a lot of sort of adventuring, traveling as well. I've been to 33 different countries on bikes now. As far as racing, I absolutely loved Tunisia because the sand was just horrific. I'd love to go back and do that race again, but unfortunately, they've kind of stopped the race because it was so hard. And they've discontinued it. After the year I did it when a couple of people didn't come home. Um, but the sand there is brutal. They kind of say that if you can ride the sand in Morocco, then great, you can ride the sand in Morocco. If you can ride the sand in Tunisia, you can ride the sand anywhere in the world. The sand is not all equal. That's on the racing side. I would say for adventuring, the culture, the scenery, the landscape, I would go with the Himalayas in India, and I did that last year on the Royal Enfield, and the Himalayas are just unbelievable. When you go to somewhere like the Alps or the Dolomites, you feel small, like they're massive mountain ranges. When you then go to the Himalayas, you realize that you are an ant, and the Alps are a speckle of sand in comparison. They are just colossal, and they will take your life so effortlessly. You know, there's landslides everywhere. You're staying in with local families in their sort of spare room on the floor in home shares. It's just the most incredible culture. The food's beautiful. Everyone's really welcoming and friendly, and I love the Himalayas. Iceland is another top one for the variety of terrain. When you think about it on a motorbike, what I love about the motorbike is it takes you places that you'd probably never go if you weren't on a motorbike. And, you know, you can go to Iceland and do the Golden Circle and see some of the main things. When you go on a motorbike, you can really get out there into the wilderness. And one minute you're in deep black volcanic sand, then you're in a green moss field, then you're in a lava field, then you're on the side of Hekla, a volcano, and the terrain is like wow over every corner. Absolutely love, 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 love Iceland. And then the other one, I know you asked me for one, but I've kind of got three. Sorry. The next one is
It's so
Norway,
fun. Don't
and
worry.
I described Norway. So, like, New Zealand was incredible. The Alps are incredible. There's loads of countries that are beautiful, but on a motorbike, you often have to do straight roads in the boring terrain or a motorway to get to a really beautiful road and a crazy, amazing scene, twisties, hairpins, and then you do another straight road to get somewhere else. Norway is just all twisty, curvy, beautiful roads around fjords and mountains with epic scenery, and it's just breathtaking. The downside of Norway is one, it rains a lot, but two, it's really, really, really expensive. So I'd recommend just maybe giving up alcohol for the week if you're going there.
I was gonna say as well, I bet the roads in all of these other countries are far better than the UK potholes that we have everywhere.
Yeah, I'd say even in the Himalayas, the roads were like absolutely pristine. The military are putting in a lot of infrastructure, and sadly, I think if you fast forward 5 years, there'll be no tracks left. It will all be paved. They're just they're just concreting everything for their military infrastructure. But their roads were just perfect. Although they will just stop. You'll be on a beautiful tarmac that's a hybrid between an alpine hairpin and the M25. Like they're colossal roads. And then it will just be like, cool, we gave up here, and you just go onto dirt. So you have to keep your eye up to spot the terrain.
So it's not too different to the roads in the UK then, because you'll be going along the. I've been on the M4 quite a lot recently, and you'll be going along and be nice and smooth, and then suddenly there's a massive pothole, and you're just like, oh, okay, that's my
I mean,
wheels
that is
in that.
fair,
That's
but
horrible.
it's the unexpected pothole that are the most dangerous. When the road just stops, you know you're hitting dirt, but when it's like just a random hole, yeah. The
Oh,
one thing I
amazing,
mentioned just now is the navigation in these races, and people often find it quite fascinating because they anticipate that I'm navigating off a GPS or something. I'm navigating off a piece of paper on my handlebars and compass bearings, cap headings. It's pretty
amazing.
wild. So it's
So
called
it's
roadbook
not Google
navigation,
Maps.
and you have effectively simplifying the terms, a box on your handlebars that's on a piece of paper on a roll. So it's like a big scroll of paper. You have a switch for your thumb, and each line of code as such gives you your direction. So you've got your kilometers at the point. So at 5K, you're going to see maybe a couple of symbols, pictures. There are some abbreviations that are all in French because the original Dakar Rally is French. So why make it any easier and put it in English? You've got French abbreviations, and then you'll have a compass bearing. So, 90 degrees, 180, 173 or whatever. And you've got to then read that whilst riding along in technical terrain, whilst trying to race for very long periods of time. And if you get lost, you can't just go, "Oh, hey Siri, where am I? Which way should I go?" You have to go back and work
I
out.
can hear, is that your phone
Yeah,
telling you
my
where you
my
are?
phone just tried to tell me where I was. That's so funny. Oh dear. Um, that's amazing. He's listening. Um, Oh, you have to go back to where you were last 100% sure of where you were, reset your piece of paper, reset your kilometers, and have another go. So getting lost could actually cost you an hour and a half trying to work out where you are. And so that's one of my strengths is my navigation. I'm not the fastest, I'm not slow, but I'm not like the fastest out there. So I came 25th overall this year last year in 2024 in the original Dakar. So pretty damn pleased with that. Considering there's 120 or something bikes. Um, Pretty chuffed.
That's amazing. Ever had to, like, have you ever found yourself lost and then you have to backtrack
Yeah.
to the last checkpoint? Is that something that happens a lot?
It's not really to the
Well, not a
last
lot.
checkpoint, it's to the last point where you last can work out exactly where you were in your road book. If anyone's interested and wants to see more about this road book or the rally stuff, if you go to my YouTube channel, The Girl on a Bike, there's lots of desert rally races on there, and there's also a video on how to road book navigate, which gives you a lot more detail about the navigation. It's really cool. And it's what's used in the cars, the trucks, the bikes, everything in these kind of desert races. And yeah, there's been situations where I've had to go back. There are checkpoints where there are humans. I'd say in a typical day, you'd have one or two refuels and a couple of checkpoints where you just have to ping in and it's a human contact. They'll check your number and you keep going. At the fuel stops, you'll get a 15-minute window to refuel your bike, restock your water, try and eat something, do any mechanics that you need on your bike, make sure everything's ready, have a wee, sit down if you have enough time, and then you get back going. And when you're in the races where the climate's particularly hard, like one of the Morocco races I did, there was a heat wave. Peak riding temperature was 52 degrees. There are paramedics there and they are watching you. They're looking for your eyes dilating. You're not allowed to leave unless they've seen you drink a litre of water. They're really, really on it. So there's sort of safety side of it. And you are out there on your own. Obviously, there's lots of competitors on the start line being fed out a couple of minutes apart, but you can have sections where you don't see another person for 2 or 3 hours. I mean, you're out there on your
Mm.
own.
This is like maybe a little bit unserious, but as athletes that spent a lot of time sitting down or on a saddle, like cyclists and rowers, we used to get like really bad bum blisters. Is that ever a problem for you guys as motorcyclists?
Absolutely, yes. You do a lot of time standing up on the bike, but you also sit down. There's no way you could ride for 8, 10, 13 hours stood up the whole time. You have to be sitting down when you can, and you're sitting on a pretty hard saddle on a bike that's constantly bouncing and moving around on the terrain. I actually did a video about a year and a half ago on how to look after your bum on a motorcycle. It's one of my most popular videos because I'm straight out honest. And I think most people don't want to talk about this stuff, like your female hygiene and how to not get blisters and raw flesh on your bum by the end of a race. And there's definitely some techniques like the material that's on your skin, the creams that you use, the seat on your bike. There's lots of things that you can do to improve that, but it's a big problem. And after the race that I did last year, 13 days, I am really proud to say that I have nailed my technique of looking after my bum. And if I'd wanted to, I could have done pole dancing at the end of it with my bum out. Like I wasn't raw, which was a big achievement because that is one of the big battles. That and blisters on your hands.
Yeah, 100%. We used to affectionately coin it as swamp crotch because we'd spend so long sat in like a
Uh,
sweaty seat with training.
yeah. Yeah. And it's so important to get it right. If you're doing a one-day race, then I mean, you can kind of get away with most things. But as soon as you're trying to do it the next day for 8 days or 13 days, you have to be spot on perfect. Because those sorts of
Yeah,
things can put you out of the race if you don't get it right.
100% for us, but also obviously for you. It's just I find it so entertaining, all the little crossovers that you can find with all these different sports, from advice that goes into sport, but also advice that goes into life as well. One of our big sort of sections on the podcast is what are we dying on the hill about? And I know it's slightly different to the motorcycling or the motorsport side of your life. So would you like to sort of introduce what you want to die on the hill about this week?
Yeah, okay. So as someone who is effectively a professional athlete, motorcycle rider, content creator, everything, I have had a very different year and a half going into pregnancy, and I'm now a mum of an 8-month-old. And my die on a hill is something that I'm desperately trying to do with my channels as I go through my journey as being a mum. And that is trying to reframe the totally misconception that society, the older generations, that mother-in-laws, whatever, put on women, that pregnancy is easy and you should be glowing and being a mum is the best thing ever and it's easy and it's perfect and it's amazing. No, it's really, really darn hard. And in modern day life, where majority of women have careers, hobbies, activities, have a lot more financial commitments, responsibilities. Life is very different now than it was a couple of generations ago. I think it's even more detrimental to support women going into motherhood with their identity. It's so easy to completely lose sight of who you ever were. And you can continue to be you and be a mum, and that doesn't make you a bad mum. And so my die on the hill ick is having a better, honest outlook and conversation about how hard it is to become a mum. Because I have got a whole load of respect for every single woman out there who is out there being a mum and bossing life, because it's hard. And we need to be open about that. And we also need to not let the men get away with not supporting.
Yeah, it
Sorry, I
is
did actually
very
go into a rant then, didn't I? That was like a proper dying on the hill then.
that's that's what it's for. That's what the dying on the hill sort of section is for. And you see now there's like more and more women who are athletes and they're having their babies and then they're returning to sport, and sometimes it's really celebrated, and the organization that they work for or train for are really supportive of them sort of having this maternity leave, having their baby. And then sometimes you see, athletes being dropped by sponsorships and all of these other things because they've chosen to have their life, have their
Yeah.
baby, just, do all of these different things.
Yeah, I was driving the rally car for Jaguar Land Rover in the Bolo Defender and I got dropped the second they knew I was pregnant. Apparently, I breached the contract because I wasn't able to do the rest of the races in the season. There was no mention of pregnancy or anything in my contract. And yes, obviously, I had to pull out of doing the race in Iceland. I did one race 11 weeks pregnant and was fine with that risk. But yeah, I got dropped second they found out. The rest of my sponsors,
That's right.
thank you to the rest of my sponsors, have been absolutely incredible. And there are some incredible brands like Harley Davidson have me and Skylar along at events. Royal Enfield are flying me and Skylar to India for an event later this year. I basically said I'm up for it. I can do the job, but I have a baby. If she can come with me, then I can do it. And they're like, embrace it. Let's do this. And I think the world needs to be a lot more supportive of mums juggling. And it's okay to want to do some of your work and be a mum. It doesn't make you less of a mum. And I think that's a really important narrative as well.
Not losing your identity.
Mm.
That's like, I wasn't expecting you to say the one of your sponsors had actually dropped you, because I guess on social media that's not something you then advertise. So it's not something that I would have then spotted, but it is part of it, and you do see it a lot. And I think part of the part of the thing there is the contracts have been written for men. So then it's like it's not one of their problems. So then when they are faced with sponsoring you as a woman who's decided, to do this next step in her life. It's not going to be the end of everything. It's just a step. I mean, it sounds to me like it's a contract that hasn't been written with you, a woman, in mind. It sounds like it's a generic contract, and it's not actually considered any of the things that you as a woman might be thinking about. It's not been written with you in mind. And then they're just like, oh, well, it's not in the contract. So, but
Yeah.
it's just mad.
Yeah, even the regulations around it. I was invited to do the Goodwood Festival of Speed hill climb when I must have been 15 weeks pregnant, maybe at the time. So the Goodwood hill climb is more like a parade. It's not a race. It is on the track, and you go up to the top. And I was invited to do this with on a couple of bikes. Completely safe for me to ride a bike at that point in pregnancy and do it. But Goodwood were flat out no, because their insurance wouldn't cover the risk of someone being pregnant doing it. I then looked into the sort of the regulations with the governing body in Raleigh to try and work out when can you be safe in a car, when should you stop doing things, and there's absolutely nothing out. There's no information at all. I tried to reach out to other females in the industry. Unfortunately, there aren't that many females in the industry, and of the ones that I could find, most of them didn't get back in a car before 5 years post having a baby. And I find that with the majority of athletes that I find on social media that I follow, the amount of times I suddenly find out they've got kids. And I'm like, how do I not know that you have kids? Or they just disappear because they've decided to have kids, and that's them just stopping. And I've just really tried to continue to showcase stuff, and I've been really terrifyingly honest and brutal through my socials. And I mean, there was a point post Skylar where I was, sat up all night breastfeeding. I was really struggling, like my nipples were bleeding. I was in a really bad place, and I even put out the R word on a post, the word regret. And by the end of
Mm,
like the message that I wrote of it, there wasn't regret, but it's okay that that word pops up in our heads. I think in life, there is absolutely nothing on this planet that we can do that is as irreversible as becoming a parent. And I wouldn't change it. I absolutely love Skylar, but you get married, you get a tattoo, you buy a house, you get a job. Any of these things are reversible. You can change them, but you can never undo this. It's such a huge transition. You think about going through puberty, which takes, what, 6, 7 years? The amount of
mm,
hormonal and physical changes that you go through. The female body goes through bigger changes than that in a couple of months, and we're just expected to be fine. And you make a scene about it, you're just a hormonal woman. I'm sorry, we
mm.
need to be more supportive. And
Yeah,
men don't get out
100.
of it. Men, it takes two to have a baby. You need to be supportive. You need to be fathers. You need to be present.
100%. It really is fascinating. And for, like you're saying about, is it Goodwood, that they're not supportive of sort of having the family there, and or not supportive of you being on a bike while you're in your very early stages of pregnancy, even though it's your full-time career job. All of these things, it's like, oh, she's pregnant now, so is her brain not working anymore, or I understand the risk of accident,
It's outdated
but as a
paperwork.
parade
Yeah.
out, yeah,
Outdated
outdated
paperwork,
health
a lack
and
of
safety.
understanding, and not having the time or the care to actually go, you know what, we need to move with the times.
Mm. And you were saying earlier that it's only 8%, like women make up about 8% of the motor industry.
In
And
road
so
bike registrations, it's now about
in road,
12% females.
okay,
So,
12%,
yeah.
still quite low.
Quite low. And
It's
once you go into the
definitely,
off-road, and in a lot of the desert races I do, I'll be the only female, or maybe there'll be 2 females, possibly 3. When I did Red Bull Romaniacs, which is a hard enduro race in Romania, there were about 5 or 600 men on the start line, there were 6 females.
have you been able to take Skylar to, like, is there been a particular event that you've taken her to that she's really enjoyed, or you've really enjoyed being there together? And that's been a positive?
Yeah, she's adorable. She loves motorbikes. She likes sitting on them and drumming the tanks. She basically thinks the tank is a drum. When she was 4.5 months old, we went to Spain and did some enduro riding, and her dad came out and looked after her while I rode. I did some hard enduro riding. I think I was 11 weeks, 9 weeks postpartum. I first got on the bike. A couple of weeks ago, we did Belgium, and my parents came in the car. I was then on the motorbike with a couple of friends, and we stayed in the accommodation and we planned the road trips each day so that we'd do a 3 hour ride in the morning, meet my mum and dad for lunch so I could then feed Skylar and because she's breastfed. And then we do another 3 hours in the afternoon and meet them again. And so my parents had an incredible holiday with their grandchild, and I got to ride bikes. It was perfect.
I did see that actually you were at Spa in Belgium.
Yes.
Is that right? Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because
Spa-Francorchamps racetrack. That was wild getting to ride around that track. And I'm off
'cause
doing that. I got the buzz, and I'm going to Donington Park tomorrow with Ducati to do another track day. So my race leathers are out.
in the background, they're
Yeah,
ready to go.
yeah. But I
One
don't.
of
I'm not a track rider, so this is only going to be my second time proper track racing, or riding. So I'm quite excited.
You definitely seem like a bit of a adrenaline junkie. Like the next fix is always just one over the next hill.
Yes. And I'm doing my best to make sure that Skylar enjoys that. Push her on the swing extra high and throw around in the water and splash about, trying to just get her into everything. If she hates motorbikes, she can hate motorbikes. I'll support her in whatever she wants to do. I just hope it's not extreme knitting.
Extreme knitting. Do you have a piece of advice that you would want to share with other women sort of looking to get into sport, whatever it might be, or just going through life?
It would be to believe in yourself, to set the goals, to not be limited by the norms of what's happening right now, and to go out and make it happen. And just do something every single day towards that goal, but believe in yourself. Every single human out there is just a normal human, just like us. They've just put the work in and they've set the goal and they've gone to make it happen. And you can absolutely do it as well. And Rome wasn't built in a day. Just believe in yourself and keep fighting.
I really like not to be limited by what is normal at the moment. That is definitely something that is irritating, and you're like, oh well, we've achieved X already, so is this enough or is it not enough? And the answer is it's not really enough, but it is all good progress, and why not keep going further and further and
Yeah.
further? Do you have I'm aware that we've nearly got up to our hour, and I'm sure you are very busy with Skylar and life and everything, so I have two more questions for you because I think we've covered quite a lot. But do you have a best fuck up? And do you have a favourite piece of music that you would listen to? Or I'm not sure if you would listen to music when you're on motorbikes, or no, just the sound of your own thoughts.
If I'm riding on the road and cruising around, then I use Cardo intercoms on my helmet so I can listen to music and chat to whoever I'm riding with or take phone calls. Um, Spice Girls is always going to brighten up my day, like Stop Right Now and all that kind of stuff. It's a great little like pick me up. But a country music. I went to university in North Carolina in America on exchange, and I definitely got into country music. So a good country playlist would be my hit. Biggest F up. Oh my goodness, I've probably got too many to list. Um, it's a really random one. It's just the first one that's come to mind. I was living in the Bahamas during my work placement at university. I did marketing and PR from Marine Biology Research Centre in Eleuthera in the Bahamas. And so I did loads of diving and kayaking and all this kind of stuff. And on a Saturday, I decided to drive up north on the island to go for a shore dive. And I had this little voice in my head that kept, as I was driving up there, I kept going, "Oh, have I got my mask? Yeah, I've got my kit. Have I got my mask?" And it kept going through my head. And anyway, whatever. I ignored it. Got there, got all my kit out, and I didn't have my mask. And for anyone that knows scuba diving, it's very difficult. I mean, probably nigh impossible to go for a dive without a mask. And I was like, I've just driven like a couple of hours and I haven't got a mask. I managed to find a local little fisherman who was just doing conch fishing in his little boat, and he had a spare mask that he said I could borrow. I was like, amazing, borrow this mask. But it had been sat in the bottom of his boat and it was like saturated in petrol. And I was like, "It'll be fine, it'll be
Oh.
fine." And I did this dive, and my eyes were just stinging and running, and anyway, I got, like, petrol fumes in my eyes for the whole dive, and it was absolutely horrific. But what it taught me was that when you get that little voice in your head that's going, "Vanessa, have you got your mask?" Just listen to it, because most of the time, that little voice inside you is trying to help you out. So I try not to ignore that little voice as much, anymore. Skylar's at the window.
Is she
"Hi!"
awake?
Yeah, she's giggling. Oh, little babies just bring
Oh,
so
bless.
much happiness. She's a little bundle of giggles and smiles.
Oh. Oh, well, that was a very good fuck up, and I'm sure you are desperate to get back to baby or chocolates or sleep or one of those 3 things. So
All
thank you
3 in
very,
1
very,
would be
very
great.
much. Well, the dream really. Maybe
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to have another babe on the way, but, I always think my mum was very brave for having 4.
Yes, I would agree with that. I would love a second. We'll see what my life situation allows, but I would
Yeah.
love Skylar to have a sibling. We'll see.
Well, thank you very, very much for all of your time. And I really, really appreciate it, and it was really special to hear about, your life and your stories. I, retired from sport due to a rheumatoid arthritis diagnosis, so my, life has completely been turned upside down, not in a surgical way or an accident way, but I really, my heartfelt feelings for you and the way that your life has changed, and
Yeah.
it's a funny one, it's a difficult one to navigate, and only you can sort of know yourself the best.
Yeah. We've gotta we've got one home for our whole lives. We've got to adapt and shift and find different things that make us sparkle and set our soul on fire, and you're doing amazing. You're doing
Thank you, that's
amazing.
very kind of you. That's very kind of you. But yeah, I really resonate with, working it out and taking time to sort of work it out and realize where the next bit is.
Well, I think it's incredible, and I feel really honored to have been invited to be on the show, and I hope the people listening have enjoyed my story among the incredible stories that you've shared and will continue to share. And
You're very, very welcome, and I wish you all the best with the 8-month newborn and all of your adventures, and I hope it is, relatively smooth sailing, although it sounds like you don't like smooth sailing all the time.
nah, you need some storms to mix it up and give you some excitement, right? But if anyone does want to, like, if anything sort of touch people, they want to message me, they can drop me a message on my Instagram or my Facebook. They can find me across pretty much all of the social media platforms. If they look for the girl on a bike, Vanessa Ruck, they'll find me. And I look forward to hearing from anyone that wants to say hi.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Vanessa.